And now the book, The Rainbow Goblins by Rico. Once there was a land that lived in fear of 7 goblins. They were called the Rainbow Goblins. Each had his own color, which was also his name: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Yellow, being the craftiest, was their chief. The goblins lived on color. They prowled the valley and climbed the highest mountains looking for rainbows. And when they found one, they caught it in their lassos, they sucked the colors out of it, and filled their bellies with its bright liquid. Only one place in the land had never known goblin fear: the hidden valley called the Valley of the Rainbow, where the great arches of color were born. There the animals still lived in paradise. But the rainbow goblins had heard tales of this valley, and their mouths watered whenever they thought of the feast that awaited them there. So they gathered up their lassos and their pails, and they set off. With great effort, the goblins made their way over jagged piles of rock that guarded the entrance. And when the climbing became difficult, Yellow roared, "Don't lose heart, comrades. Think of the delicious colors ahead." Can you see the rainbow goblins walking across that branch? The sun had almost set by the time they reached their goal, the very meadow where the rainbow sprang to life. Immediately beneath the meadow they found a cave. "We'll spend the night here," the yellow goblin commanded. When the moon rose and saw them warming themselves around the fire they had lit, it shouted out in alarm, "The rainbow goblins are in the valley!" And the trees and the bushes, they took up the cry. And the flowers and the grasses and the animals and the waters passed it on. And by midnight, the evil tidings had spread throughout the valley. The goblins could hardly contain their excitement. "Soon all the colors of the rainbow will be ours," Yellow gloated. "We'll snatch it as it rises," said Green, "when the colors are still fresh and creamy." The blue goblin cackled, "Look at those roots dangling from the walls. They're straining to hear our plans. A lot of good it'll do them, or their friend the rainbow." Finally, exhausted by their scheming, the goblins fell asleep. Outside, the moon shone on the mirror-like surface of the water. Its magical light was reflected into the cave. Then, all 7 goblins had a wonderful dream. The same wonderful dream about the paradise of Rainbow Land, where all you had to do was lie on your back, open your mouth, and the most succulent colors dripped down your throat. The dream went on, and the greedy goblins drank and drank, and at dawn, just when their bellies were about to burst, they were awakened by a distant clap of thunder. The goblins sprang to their feet and rushed to the mouth of the cave. "A storm! A storm!" Red shouted. "Look how the wind is driving it towards us," Orange cried. And all the goblins danced and pranced about in glee, for they knew that after the wildest morning thunderstorm comes the most beautiful rainbow. Yellow was so proud of his plan of attack that he went over and over it again, and each goblin tested his lasso. "Red, don't forget you must seize the left flank, and I will move in on the right," the violet goblin burst out excitedly. Before the last roll of thunder faded into the valley, the goblins took up their pails and lassos and marched single file out of the cave. The sight that greeted them when they reached the meadow took their breath away. The rising arch of the rainbow, so rich with color and promise, almost blinded them. Trembling with excitement, Yellow finally managed to give the signal to attack. What happens next? Did they catch the rainbow in their lassos? Or no, they didn't catch the rainbow in their lassos. We're going to draw what happens next. Now, here are some images of goblins, and you're going to be looking at these when you go to draw your goblins today. Here are what the goblins look like from the story, but we're going to draw other ones that are found in the room. Let's begin. Now, we left off in the story. The sight that greeted them when they reached the rainbow took their breath away. The rising arch of the rainbow, so rich with color and promise, almost blinded them. Trembling with excitement, Yellow finally managed to give the signal to attack. Let's see what happens next. The goblins swung their lassos around and around and hurled them into the sky. But in the same instant, the rainbow vanished, as it had been swallowed up by the earth. The goblins were dumbfounded. Nothing like this has ever happened to them before. They stared up at their outstretched, which a second later snapped back at them. Indigo wept, Blue cursed, Yellow stumbled, Orange cried out, "Treachery!" Violet tumbled to the grass, Red raged, but the more they thrashed about, the more tangled up they became in their own lassos, until they snarled themselves into a grunting, groaning mass of goblins on the ground. As they lay there helplessly, a flood of colors poured forth from all the flowers in the meadow. "The flowers!" screamed the blue goblin. "The flowers!" He had suddenly remembered those dangly roots he made fun of in the cave. Through the roots, the flowers heard the goblins' plans, and they devised a counterplan to save the rainbow. The moment the attack was launched, the flowers had drained all of the colors of the rainbow into their petals. And as soon as the goblins became ensnared in their own lassos, the petals let loose the deluge. So the goblins drowned in the colors they had come to steal, and no one in the valley wept for them. The rainbow itself was reborn, more magnificently than ever. Out of gratitude, it lifted up the flowers that had saved it and transformed each of them into glittering dragonflies and butterflies and splendidly plumed birds. But since that time, the rainbow has become more cautious. Now, when it arches across the sky, it's careful not to touch the earth anywhere. No matter how hard you try to sneak up on it, you can never come to the place where it begins or where it ends. The end.